Has there been a pivotal moment that pushed you in this direction, or was this always an interest of yours, or what shaped you into this?
No, this was not always an interest of mine. I didn't think I needed particular depth in this area. But basically, in my mid to late 20s, I was starting to become more and more of an independent adult. I'd been living on my own for a while. When I graduated from college, I moved across the country and was teaching and completely supporting myself. And I was starting to make some decisions. They weren't bad decisions, they were just my decisions. And my father didn't agree with some of the decisions I was making. And so he told me what he thought I should be doing. And definitely took that into consideration because I always respected his opinion. I honestly, even at the age of 26, 27, still thought he knew best. And so I looked into what he was suggesting and I started praying about these decisions. I asked for wise advice from friends at church. And I came to the conclusion that no, I need to be going in this direction. This is where God's leading me in these areas. And so I shared that with my dad, thinking that he would be proud of how much time I had taken to think about it, pray about it,
Hmm.
and that I had well thought out reasons for why I was going to do what I was going to do. But unfortunately, he was not okay with that. He was not okay unless I was doing what he thought I should do. And over a period of some months, things got more and more tense. Um, and I was feeling the pressure of he's getting more and more upset with me because I'm not bending and doing what he
Hmm.
wants. And so essentially the last conversation we had, it wasn't explicitly stated, but essentially he cut me out of his life and cut me off from my family. And that conversation happened about 2 months before I was getting married. And
Wow.
so my family was not allowed to come to the wedding. I had to ask my best friend's father if he would walk me down the aisle. And it was it was still a really good day,
Hmm.
but it was obviously in the back of my mind that my family was not at my wedding. And um, we went on our honeymoon. When we came back, I found out, or rather, my mom reached out and she started reconnecting with me. And I found out that my father had divorced her and had not
Hmm.
told me that. So there was a lot of foundational upheaval in my life at that time.
Right.
And I did not realize it then because I never said the words out loud, but I was so angry at my dad that I was choosing not to forgive him
Hmm.
for what he had done and how he had hurt me. And it was several years before I realized what I had done because our choices are not without consequences. And over those years, I was starting to harden into a bitter, resentful, cynical person. But it's slow, just like anything in life. You
Right.
don't lose your hair overnight, you don't gain weight overnight, you don't turn into a different person overnight. But God opened my eyes, and it was like I could see myself from outside. I started to see the way that I was thinking, how I was critical of people, and it didn't come out of my mouth, but the things I was thinking were not kind things, and the way that I was being. And I realized I needed to make a decision, and that God tells us to forgive. It's not a choice, it's a command.
Hmm.
And so I was really struggling with that. And I called my mom one day to say, I don't want to become a bitter person. I know I need to forgive him in order to not become bitter, but I can't forgive him. And it wasn't said that calmly.
Hmm.
And I said, I feel like I'm on a merry-go-round and I cannot get off this merry-go-round. And she thought about what I was saying for a moment, I said, I genuinely cannot forgive him. And I know that's what I have to do. Help. And she said, well, can you pray to want to forgive him? And that hit me kind of like a punch in the gut, like,
Yeah.
oh. And I thought about that for a minute and I said, yes, I can do that because I know that right now, if I prayed and asked God to help me forgive my father, that would be a lie because I don't want to. But I don't want to turn into this more than I want to hold on to my anger. And so I
Right.
started that journey at that time and I just said, God, help me want to forgive him. And so that was about a year of just praying that whenever my dad popped into my mind. And a year later, when he came to mind, I realized that uh, God had taken that burden, that anger, that hatred, that desire for revenge and resentment. He had taken it out of my heart and he had replaced it with a heart that desired to forgive my dad. I was shocked. I could not believe the
Hmm.
transformation that God had worked. So at that point, I started praying. And every time I remembered a way that I had been hurt, I would ask God to help me forgive that hurt, that offense. And a year later, I realized that I had forgiven everything that there was on, the imaginary list. And not only had I forgiven my dad for everything, but God had yet again transformed my heart to where I had genuine desire for reconciliation. Meaning, if my dad ever said that he wanted to reconcile, I would be able to say wholeheartedly, yes, let's talk
Hmm.
about how we reconcile this relationship. And I could not believe what that experience was like. And so God kind of let me enjoy that really high feeling for a while. And then I started feeling that nudging from the Holy Spirit of this isn't just for you, kind of like salvation, right? It is for you, but it's not just for you. And so I started saying, okay, God, who do you want me to talk to? Where do you want me to go? Tell me because this is amazing. And I want everyone to know about the freedom that comes from choosing to be obedient and forgive.